It's 2 a.m., and you haven't moved in 40 minutes. The rain is doing that thing where it doesn't quite pour. It just hangs in the air, settling on the windshield in slow, shapeless patterns. The engine is off. The street outside is empty. And across the road, behind a row of frosted windows on the third floor, a light is still on. You've been watching it, waiting for it to go dark. It doesn't. There's an envelope on the passenger seat. Unmarked. You've been ignoring it the same way you ignore a missed call from someone you know you'll have to deal with eventually. You're not afraid. That's what you keep telling yourself. You're a journalist. Observation is the job. Distance is the tool. You watch. You write. You leave, except right now, you can't leave. And somewhere between the third hour of surveillance and the fourth cup of gas station coffee, you stopped being sure why. 3 weeks ago, you didn't know this street existed. 3 weeks ago, you were still the person you thought you were. You haven't opened the envelope yet, but you already know. Whatever's inside it, it already knows you. You didn't get here by accident. That's the part nobody tells you. How ambition, when it starts to rot, smells almost identical to purpose. 5 years ago, you were the journalist people pointed to. The one with the instincts. The one whose name on a byline meant something. Then, slowly, without any single dramatic moment you could point to, it stopped meaning that. The awards shelf gathered dust. The editor who used to call you first started calling someone younger, someone hungrier. And you sat at your desk by the window, the one you used to love, and watched it become just a view of the parking lot. Your marriage didn't end in a fight. It ended the way a conversation does when both people have simply run out of things to say. Quiet, mutual, final. So when this story came, you told yourself it was instinct. You told yourself it was the journalist in you recognizing something real. You repeated that so many times it started to feel true. But the truth, the one you've been circling for months, is simpler and harder than that. You needed to matter again, and you were willing to go anywhere that let you. The tip came from a defense attorney named Carla. Tired eyes, careful mouth, the kind of woman who chooses every word like she's spending money she doesn't have. She slid a name across a coffee shop table and said, simply, "Don't look for them. Let them find you." You didn't fully understand that instruction until the third week. Your first real contact was a man who spoke in half sentences and watched the door more than he watched you. Fluorescent diner lights. Bad coffee going cold between you. He didn't give you information, he gave you proximity, access in small, deliberate doses, the way you'd feed an animal you weren't sure you could trust yet. You learned fast. You stopped asking direct questions. You stopped taking notes in front of people. You learned how to listen without looking like you were listening. And somewhere in learning that, you stopped noticing you were changing. Then, they gave you a name to use, not yours, something short and forgettable. That night, alone in your bathroom, you practiced saying it in the mirror. You said it until it stopped feeling strange. That was the moment you should have left. You didn't. Weeks pass, and the world you're moving through starts to feel less like a story and more like a place. The operation reveals itself in layers, slowly, deliberately. Like a building you keep discovering new rooms in, each room more complex than the last, each one pulling you further from the door you came through. Then you meet the man at the center, and he's nothing like what you built in your head. He's calm, measured, he laughs at the right moments. He asks about your work, your real work, the pieces you're proud of, and he actually listens, not the way people listen at parties, waiting for their turn. The way someone listens when they're genuinely deciding what kind of person you are. It's the most seen you've felt in years. That's the part that should have frightened you. You start to notice something uncomfortable. These people have a code, a brutal, unspoken loyalty that your newsroom, with all its principles posted on the wall, never quite managed. You stop recording conversations. You tell yourself your memory is sharper. You don't examine the real reason yet. Every empire looks like a family from the inside. You had enough for the story. You didn't write it. Somewhere quiet, you already know why. It doesn't happen all at once. That's how you miss it. Sleep starts shifting. You wake at odd hours with your mind already running, calculating, scanning, replaying conversations for things you might have missed. Your apartment, when you return to it, feels like a costume you've outgrown. Too quiet, too small, too honest. Your editor calls on a Tuesday. You give her just enough. Shaped silences, careful half-truths that feel nothing like lying in the moment. You've gotten good at that. Better than you're comfortable admitting. What unsettles you most isn't what you're doing, it's how naturally you're doing it. A younger colleague stops by your desk asking for advice. You hear yourself respond, measured, strategic, reading the room before speaking. And you don't recognize the voice coming out of you. You search for the version of yourself that would have answered differently. You can't quite locate him. That night, you find an old photo 6 years ago. You study that man's face looking for something familiar. You find very little. Then your daughter calls. Routine, short. She says, "Good night," the way she always does. And something in your chest moves in a way you don't have words for anymore. It comes quietly. The way the most important moments always do. A conversation you weren't meant to fully hear. A name mentioned too casually. A detail that slots into place with a soft, terrible click. And suddenly, the entire architecture of the last 2 months rearranges itself in your mind. Every warm conversation, every open door, every moment someone trusted you faster than they should have. They know who you are. They've known for a while. You sit with that for a long moment, not panic, something colder than panic. The specific dread of understanding that you were never the one watching. You were always the one being watched. Every room they let you into, every truth they handed you. Deliberate, measured, chosen. The question of why is the most frightening thought you've ever had. Then you're sitting across from him, the man at the center, and he looks at you with that familiar calm and says, simply, "You're a good observer, nothing else." He returns to his coffee, but, you understand, it isn't a compliment. It's a door closing. The truth doesn't always need to be spoken. Sometimes it just sits across from you and lets you figure it out yourself. You write the story. Finally. All of it, not because you're brave, because you've run out of other options. Because staying silent now would be its own kind of consequence. And at least this one you can live with, maybe. You file it on a Thursday morning. Your editor reads it twice before she calls you. Her voice is different, careful, almost reverent. The kind of voice people use around something they recognize as significant and fragile at the same time. It runs. Arrests follow. Your name appears on the front page in a font size you haven't seen in years. People in the newsroom say your name differently now. The younger colleague who asked for your advice stops by your desk and looks at you like you're something to aspire to. You feel none of what you expected. Then, you see a small item buried in the regional news. Single car accident, icy road. A defense attorney named Carla, tired eyes, careful mouth. The woman who told you not to look. Just let them find you. You close the tab. You sit very still. You go back to that diner. You order the same bad coffee. The booth across from you is empty. It stays that way. You're back in the car. The rain is the same. The street is the same. You pick up the envelope. Inside are photographs, dozens of them. You at the diner. You on that corner at midnight. You drinking bad coffee across from a man who watched the door. Every meeting documented. Every careful step traced. Dates and times written in the margins in handwriting that isn't yours. They built a file on you the same way you built a file on them. You sit with that symmetry for a long time. The rain keeps settling on the windshield in slow, shapeless patterns. You watch your own reflection fracture across the glass. Broken into pieces by the water. Reassembling, breaking again. You reach for your recorder. The one you stopped using. You press play without thinking. Your own voice comes back to you. Steady, confident, from weeks ago that feel like another lifetime. "I'm just a journalist. I'm just here to observe." The recording ends. The street outside stays empty. The light on the 3rd floor is finally off. You don't feel like a journalist. You don't feel like an observer. You're not entirely sure what you feel like anymore. Or who. Here's what they don't teach you. In journalism school. In life. In any of the quiet conversations between people who think they understand how the world works. Every story has a cost. And the invoice doesn't arrive when the story does. It arrives later, in the specific silence of a diner booth that stays empty. In the voice on a recorder that sounds like someone you used to trust completely. In the face of a 6-year-old photograph that looks back at you like a stranger you once knew everything about. You went looking for the truth about other people. That part you found, It's sitting in a published piece that people are already forgetting as they scroll to the next thing. But the other truth, the quieter, more permanent one, found you instead. You were never just observing. You were participating. In their world. In your own erosion. In the slow, willing surrender of the person you were before you needed this to matter. The most dangerous story you'll ever cover isn't theirs. It's the one you start telling yourself about who you are and why you're really there. Once that story changes, so do you. And no editor can kill it. You're still in the car. The rain is still falling, not quite pouring, just hanging there, the way it has been all night. The way certain things do when they're waiting for you to decide what to do with them. The envelope is open on your lap. The recorder is silent. The light across the street is off. And somewhere beneath the exhaustion and the cold and the specific weight of everything you now carry, there's a part of you that's still awake, still watching, still turning things over slowly, looking for the angle, searching for what the story underneath the story actually means. That part never really leaves. It's the best and most dangerous thing about you. If this stayed with you, if something in these 18 minutes pressed against something real inside you, then you already understand why these stories exist. Not to frighten, not to entertain, to remind you what it costs to stop paying attention to yourself. There's more where this came from, quieter stories, louder ones, stories about the margins where ordinary people make irreversible decisions. Stay close. The next one finds you the same way this one did, when you're least expecting it.